This class is concerned with issues when developing and maintaining a website. First of all, there are technical issues. For example, when developing a website, it's important to keep the website as contemporary as possible. Keep it up to date. Keep it up to date technically, if possible. Nowadays, sites are sometimes referred to as responsive. That means that a website will configure itself to any size of screen, so that users may access the website on a smartphone or on a tablet, on a laptop, on a big desktop monitor. So it fits, and it's important that websites have this facility so that users may access the site from a variety of sources. So it takes advantage of the medium. It could be that a site forces someone to scroll from left to right. And I'll talk about these again in a few moments' time later in this session. But forcing a user to scroll in almost a counterintuitive way can detract from the site. So care should be taken on how the user will approach the site and what the user expects of the site. Having dead links, of course, is bad. And as I said, I'll deal with all of these later in the session as well. But having a dead link is bad. It frustrates the user. It's a sign of not being professional. The link doesn't go anywhere, so what's it doing there? It could have an egocentric design, a design which the developer likes, but perhaps no one else likes. Perhaps the developer has got particular tastes on how sites should look or how the navigation on sites should work, but nobody else shares this view, or very few people share the view, so it's not widely acceptable as a design. Could have a poor navigation method. The site, it's not easy to navigate. It's not easy to find one's way around the site. Not easy perhaps to find the home button. Not easy to find information. It's a question of clicking many times, and this frustrates the user. It's unnecessary and it just leads to a bad experience. Graphics could be inappropriate in the sense that they are large and difficult to download, takes time, frustrates the user while they're waiting for a big graphic to download, perhaps a graphic that doesn't do anything. It doesn't add to the site or to the attractiveness of the site. It's just a graphic perhaps that the designer liked and wanted to put online. But it frustrates the user. It could be browser bias. Sometimes sites are for particular browsers. It could be for Firefox or for Opera or for Internet Explorer or whatever, for Chrome. Nowadays the browser bias is not so much a problem, but in the past there was a real issue about sites could be used on one browser but not on another browser. And again, the designer should be careful to make sure that their sites are capable of being used on a variety of browsers. The site could lack a clear message. The site could be confusing. The information on the site could be confusing. It could be recommending something and at the same time criticizing it. It depends on the words used and how the site is designed. So it's important that the site is scrutinized by many people before it goes live, and criticisms and comments are taken on board about the site. Perhaps a focus group may be used to give feedback on a particular site. The site could be out of date, stagnation. It could be that the information on the site is out of date, or the design looks old or looks out of date as well. So again, not a good way of viewing the site. And having an under construction sign is always bad. It means that the company designed the site, or got the site, got registered the name, but didn't do anything about it. They don't see the site as urgent. Perhaps they're focusing their efforts on something else. Well, that means the users are almost insulted. They're not being considered as that important. If they were important, the site would be up and running and available for them to use. Let's look at these again in a little bit more detail, but essentially the same points, just to run across them a second time. So first of all, not taking advantage of the medium. Well, it's important that the site exploits the uses of the medium. The medium, the internet, is quite a rich place. It can have video or sound, or it can have animations, graphics. It's important that these things are not overdone. You don't want to overwhelm the viewer. But done appropriately, they're using the medium effectively. The real trick here is to try to give the user control over what he or she wants. They may want to see the video, in which case give a link to it. Don't force the video on them. Give a link to the video. So they may access the video if they wish. Or they may access a sound file if they wish. So try to give the users control over what they're accessing. And that's probably a good way of sidestepping this particular criticism. Forcing the user to scroll from left to right. Forcing the user to scroll in any particular way that's not intuitive can be quite disastrous. They get frustrated or annoyed. If the scroll bars are the wrong way around, then they get annoyed. What sort of site is this? What are the designers trying to do? Is it a bug with the computer? Is it a bug with the site? They don't trust the site. Some people who are very sensitive may think it's got a virus and may not want to access the site again. So it's important that the navigations and the layout of the site fits into the experiences of the user, who might be experienced in many other sites, and they should broadly follow the same pattern. Dead links is simply, as I said earlier, a sign that the business is not taking the website seriously. It puts up a site and it causes frustration. The user clicks on the link and nothing happens, or it goes to a different site, it defaults to a different site, in which case they're away from where they wanted to be. It all leads to frustration, it all leads to annoyance, and it leads to a bad reputation for the site. Egocentric design. Well, sometimes people try to design a nice home page, but the home page has requirements, download requirements, which are beyond reasonable download speeds. So the user has to wait for the home page to download. That's frustrating, that's annoying, particularly if they're accessing the site on a smartphone. The designer may have particular color schemes in mind which may not fit in with what the user likes to see. Particular fonts. They may use comic fonts, but people don't want to see comic fonts. They want straightforward fonts, ones easy to read. animated logos that move, don't really impress too many users anymore. They were a novelty back when the internet first came out, but now they're seen as unnecessary. Flash movies and so on, if they're appropriately done, they may fit. I think it's important maybe to get the views of a focus group. That's a good idea. Get a focus group, get a number of people in to look at the site and give criticisms, and get them to be honest about the site. And that may insult or upset or upset the webmaster who sees his or her work being criticized. But the site is not for the webmaster. The site is for the user, and that's the important thing to bear in mind. Could be that the site is not consistent, and that also is an issue. It could be that the home page has a particular style. Click a link and it looks like the user has gone into a completely different site. There's a different design for the second page. It can happen, and it's not good practice. There needs to be consistency throughout the site. Poor navigation method. Well, as I said a few times already, it's important that the links do what they say they do, and that the links are appropriate. There should be obvious links, perhaps underlined. That's one way of indicating a link. Or there can be hover over buttons that just change color in some way when the cursor is moved over them. But there should be obviously a navigation method, and they should be easily found, and they should be relevant. In other words, they should do what they say they're doing. Go to the page they say they're going to. With graphics, it's important to be careful about the size of the graphics and the download time, making sure that the site can come down fast and that the graphics will fit on all screens and is capable of being configured to fit on all screens. The browser bias I mentioned earlier, well, not so much an issue anymore. The technology now enables sites to come up on most browsers, but in the past certainly there was an issue that certain sites would not work on certain browsers, and it's still the case that some browsers might need specialist plugins to make them work. Internet Explorer may need Silverlight, or so different browsers may have plugins or the requirements of certain plugins before they can work. But generally speaking, it's not a big issue to get those fixed nowadays. It's the browsers themselves know what they need and will sometimes go looking for it on a relevant website and download it and install it, and it'll work. But certainly in the past there was an issue of browser bias. It's important that the target audience is addressed. The web designer should know who the site's aimed at, and make sure that the information, the graphics, the video, if there is any, everything is aimed at the target audience. Don't have irrelevant material. Don't just put material up because it's fun. It's wasting the people who access the site. It's wasting their time. It's causing frustration. Just put up what the site says it's going to do. Have a clear message. And the site should be updated regularly to make sure that redundant links that are not working, broken links, make sure that the graphics are more contemporary, that the design is more up to date. Just refresh the site and make sure it's done on a regular basis. Don't just put the site up and leave it. It's a question of maintaining the site. The under construction sign, well, it means that the site was not ready. the address was published in search engines, and keywords were allocated and picked up by the search bots. But perhaps it would have been better to wait until the site was ready, so that people accessing the site are not going to be frustrated by getting an under construction sign or telling them they will be welcome back in the future or whatever. That's little comfort. They have spent some time trying to get there. When they got there, there was nothing. It may lead to frustration, and they may be upset by the simple waste of time. And that's it. That's all we're going to deal with in the context of this session. So these are the various mistakes that can happen in web design, and it's important just simply to bear these in mind. That's all I'm going to do in this session, so I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you for watching.